All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. And with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be a fun one because tonight's show is a follow-up to a show that we did, hell, I don't even know how long ago, a year, maybe 2 years, something like that. That show was about scientists that are trying to make Jurassic Park a reality. They are actually trying to bring back dinosaurs and other extinct creatures. And this is going to be a follow-up to that because they're one step closer now. I'm going to read you an article that comes from earthlymission.com. The title is Scientists Resurrecting Extinct Frog. Could be first step to Jurassic Park coming true. A frog species gone extinct since 1983 has been brought back to life. This could be the first step towards resurrecting long extinct animals. But do we really need it? Scientists at the University of New South Wales Lazarus Project announced that they have reproduced the genome, the biological material that carries our genetic structure, of an extinct Australian frog species, the Gastric brooding frog. The frog once lived in the rainforest of Queensland, Australia, and was declared extinct in 1983. It was a remarkable amphibian that swallowed its fertilized eggs, brooded its young in its stomach, and then gave birth to baby frogs through its mouth. Yes, its mouth. According to the leader of the experiment, Professor Mike Archer, the team took tissue from a frog that had been dead and frozen since the 1970s and implanted it successfully in an egg from a closely related frog species. Although none of the embryos survived beyond a few days, genetic tests confirmed that the dividing cells do indeed contain the genetic material from the extinct frog. And even a brief existence stirred excitement that this technique could lead to a way of recreating lost species. Quote, "We're increasingly confident that the hurdles ahead are technological, not biological," end quote, Professor Archer told the Guardian newspaper, adding that they've already begun working on cloning a Tasmanian tiger, which disappeared in the 1930s. Since the 2013 announcement, the team has been reassessing their techniques and researching developments overseas in an attempt to overcome the obstacles of the embryos failing to grow into tadpoles. Cloning experiments can be conducted for only a week a year in the summer, due to the breeding cycle of the host frog. We are not giving up. We are still hopeful that we will succeed and be able to bring this wonderful frog back to life within a few years, says Professor Archer. In fact, we have an ethical responsibility to keep going and to try to undo the harm that we have done in contributing to its extinction. Of course, how far we should go with that ethical responsibility is hard to say. Should it be just animals that we have made go extinct? Or should we go on and attempt to bring back the woolly mammoth too? Then what could ever stop us from making Jurassic Park come true? That's also an important ethical consideration. And that is the end of the article. Now what I want to say about this, first of all, is that they succeeded in bringing this frog back. Granted, the frog didn't live past a couple days, but still, they brought that genetic material back into the land of the living. They will eventually figure out how to keep the thing alive. They would have already figured it out years ago if it wasn't for the fact that they can only do experiments 1 week a year. And as the article said, that's because of the breeding cycle of the frog that they're using to implant the genetic material in. So this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Once they figure out how to keep the thing alive past the first couple days, they'll be able to recreate that with pretty much any species they want. They'll be able to take any bit of genome and implant it and make that creature live again. So the questions we have to ask are, number one, is that smart to do? Number two, why are we doing it? And number three, how is it done? What is necessary to do this? Well, we'll start with the last question first. In the case of this frog, they had frozen tissue that contained the genome, and that's how they were able to sequence it and do it. So do they have that same kind of access to genetic material from long dead animals? In Jurassic Park, there was a mosquito that was stuck in amber and fossilized. That mosquito had bitten a dinosaur. Some of the blood from that dinosaur was still in the mosquito. That is how they did it. So is something like that actually possible? Maybe. We have extremely well-preserved specimens that come out of the Arctic. If the conditions are correct, then you can even have flesh still on the bones of these animals that died a long, long, long time ago. In a situation like that, chances are pretty good that you would be able to extract DNA. You would be able to get enough viable tissue that you could sequence the genome. Now, sequencing the genome is not as simple as, hey, I got a piece of fingernail or whatever, or a piece of skin. Here, put that in there. It doesn't work like that. It takes quite a long time, a lot of computing power, a lot of years to sequence the entire genome. Can it be done? Yes, it absolutely can be done. Will it be done? Yes. At some point, if this kind of science is not stopped, it will be done. Somebody will do it. We've already sequenced the human genome to a great extent. We've already sequenced a lot of other animal genomes. No reason why we couldn't do it with an extinct species, if we have enough material to work with. And that also is just a matter of time. Because in order to have a fossil in the first place, or to have bones in the first place that you can dig up, the conditions have to be right so that they don't decompose. If conditions are optimum, you can have dinosaurs that will still have flesh on their bones, that they can absolutely get viable DNA from. Will it be for every single species? Probably not. Because, like I said, the conditions have to be perfect. Being frozen in the ice is not the only way that you could achieve this. There's several different ways, but it has to be a specimen that has lasted and been preserved. But yes, it absolutely could be done if we had the material to do it. Should we do it? Probably not. I'm not coming at this from a moral or a religious standpoint. I'm coming at this from a purely common sense standpoint. Does it make any sense to bring back a dinosaur? Why would we do that? What purpose could that possibly serve other than putting them in a zoo somewhere where we can look at them? You could conduct scientific experiments on them, poke them and prod them and test them and cut them up. That's possible. Is it humane? No. Is it morally right to do? No. But that won't stop them from doing it. And if you think that they're going to bring back a dinosaur and it's going to be treated well, you're crazy. The first bunch of them that they bring back are going to be kept in lab settings, essentially a cage, where they're going to be stuck and poked and prodded and abused in all sorts of ways in the name of scientific research. And when they're done with them, they will kill them and they will cut them up and see how they work. That's exactly what's going to happen. So is it morally cool to do? No. Is it dangerous to do? Yes, absolutely. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. It's not a gigantic leap of the imagination to imagine an Allosaurus or a T-Rex or something like that walking down Fifth Avenue. All you have to do to see the effects of that is watch any Godzilla movie ever made. It's pretty obvious that it will not end well. Now, will they be shooting electric, lightning, fire stuff out of their mouth? No. But they're way bigger than us. They'll do a lot of damage. They'll hurt a lot of people. So yes, it's dangerous to bring them back, but that's not the only reason. The only thing you have to worry about is not being stepped on by a T-Rex or being eaten, because that's only going to affect a small amount of people until they kill the thing. What you have to worry about is much smaller, on a microscopic level. Because when you're talking about bringing back species that have been extinct for millions of years, such as dinosaurs, or tens of thousands of years like the woolly mammoth, you have to keep in mind the world was a much different place back then. There were different bacteria, different viruses, different diseases. There's a chance of bringing some of that back with it. There are certain animals that are the only ones that can be affected by certain diseases. How do we know when we're bringing something back that comes from a time well before we were around, what the consequences of that could be? What kind of bacterial life will make their living on that animal? What those interactions will be like? What kind of viruses is that animal susceptible to? It could be something that does not affect us at all right now. It's not dangerous at all in us. It can't even get on us yet. We can't catch it, so to speak. But let's say you bring back an Allosaurus, maybe that Allosaurus can. So now that Allosaurus is walking around with this killer virus that still doesn't affect us, but it affects that animal. Well, as viruses tend to do, it mutates into something that can cross species lines and come to us. And then you have the next plague. It's possible. Something you got to worry about. Also, allergic reactions. You have people today that are allergic to cats, dogs, peanuts, all kinds of different things. How do we know how that creature that we bring back is going to affect us? It very well could be something that provokes a severe allergic reaction to a section of the population. Maybe the entire population. You have no idea. We've never had modern man interacting with these creatures, so we don't know what the effects are going to be. Now you might say, well, James, that's crazy, man. That's so far-fetched and out there. There's no way that that's something we should be worrying about. Okay, well, imagine that the cat, the regular house cat, doesn't exist. It has went extinct 100,000 years ago. Some scientist somewhere says, hey, look what I just found. I have a sample of the genetic structure of this animal. I can bring it back. And everybody says, well, what did it do? What did it look like? Well, we don't really know because we weren't there, but according to the bones that we found, we think that it did this and this. Okay, well, that doesn't sound so bad. Let's bring it back. So then you bring it back. Now, if you look at a normal house cat, you don't think that that's a dangerous animal. It's a little cute, fluffy, lovable thing, especially if you're talking a kitten. But you forget that the regular house cat has claws and fangs. It's nature's perfect killing machine. Just ask any mouse or bird or bug that gets anywhere near it. That's what they do. They kill. Also, the allergy situation. You would have no way to know that a section of our population would be so allergic and affected by this animal that literally they can't even barely breathe. Their lungs fill up with fluid. They just can't even function when they're in the same house as one. You would have no way to know that. So before you think, well, that's crazy that I would be allergic to a dinosaur, it makes no sense. It could happen. You don't know. There's been people that have had cats and now they can't because they're allergic now. Your allergies change every so many years. I think it's every 7 years is what I was reading once. So there is risk involved. That's all I'm saying. We don't know. So when you're talking dinosaurs, you're talking much larger than us. You're talking an entirely different climate than what we had. It was way, way hotter, way higher oxygen content back then. We don't even know if these things could survive in our modern climate. It's a lot cooler than it was then. There's nowhere near as much oxygen in the air. We don't even know if they'd be able to breathe properly. We have no idea. All we know is what we've learned from digging up a bone here or there. And we've tried to guesstimate about the biology of the animal, about the behavior of the animal, the temperament, the culture of the animal, everything. All of this stuff that you've read about dinosaurs growing up is complete fantasy. Who knows? When I was growing up in school, we were taught that dinosaurs were lizards. They were scaly, slimy lizards. That's what we were taught. We were taught that the T-Rex was this towering, massive, amazing, king of the jungle kind of dinosaur, the baddest boy on the planet. That's what we were taught. Well, come to find out, none of that is true. Dinosaurs aren't lizards. They're actually probably birds. That's who they're related to, is modern bird. They're not slimy or scaly. A lot of them had feathers. We didn't know that, but now we do because we found dinosaurs that we thought were scaly and slimy that had feathers on them when we found a better preserved specimen. We thought the T-Rex, like I said, was the king of the jungle, the baddest boy on the block, was his super predator. Turns out, not so much. He was kind of a scavenger, actually. Wasn't very bad at all. That idea you have of the towering T-Rex stomping along like in Land of the Lost and he's going to reach down and bite your head off, complete nonsense. Not even physically possible. Because when you look at a complete skeleton of the T-Rex, if it stood up in an upright position, the way they show them on movies and TV, it would break its spine. It was actually horizontal, not vertical. So it was always parallel to the ground, not upright. So it wasn't that big and bad. And the majority of what it ate was probably things that were leftover kills from other animals. It was a scavenger, much like a vulture. I tell you all this because we don't know. In another 10 years, a lot of what I just told you might be complete nonsense. And some other guy might be doing a show saying, can you believe what this idiot thought? We are trying to make the best guess possible according to the data that we have. That's what paleontologists do. And I'm not knocking them. Don't get me wrong. I think that what they do is fascinating. I think they're awesome. But what I'm saying is they can only extrapolate from the evidence they have. So they can only look at the bones that they found or the specimens they found like in the tar pits or places where they've been a little better preserved and say, hey, wow, look at this. Now we know that a lot of these dinosaurs actually had feathers and we never knew that before. So we don't know what we're talking about half the time with dinosaurs. Honestly, we just have a small little snapshot of it. We don't have anywhere near enough information to make the decision of whether we want to bring it back or not. That's what I'm saying. Now, some species we know a lot more about than other species. But even those species that we know a lot more about, there's no way in hell that we know enough to actually bring this creature back to life and put it in our world right now. Imagine the Velociraptor. Now, everybody knows the Velociraptor from Jurassic Park. This is a creature that was as tall as me. So it wasn't a huge, giant dinosaur. It was in between 6 and 8 foot tall. Very, very fast. Very agile. And very dangerous. Because this particular dinosaur had a much bigger brain than we used to think dinosaurs were capable of having. When I was coming up, we were told that dinosaurs had little pea brains, not the Velociraptor. The Velociraptor is smart. He can plan and strategize with other dinosaurs. When they would hunt in a pack like wolves. And they would actually devise a strategy and a plan on how to drive whatever they were trying to kill into the perfect ambush so that they could kill it. Absolutely fascinating. Now, we know this because of a lot of information we've gotten over the years of velociraptors, because we have a lot of them. How do we know that they are the only dinosaur that was smart like that? How do we know that? How do we know that some of these other species that we might think about bringing back weren't just as intelligent? It's kind of a scary thought, isn't it? Because we have no idea. There was a time when we didn't even know the Velociraptor was as badass as it was. There are dinosaur species that went extinct that make something like the T-Rex, which, not the T-Rex scavenger I'm talking about in reality, but the image of the T-Rex that we had, of this big, giant badass. There are dinosaurs that went extinct that make that T-Rex look like a little tiny thing. They were way larger. They were way badder. I mean, there are some true nightmares out there that have went extinct. How do we know what we're bringing back? That's all I'm saying. You gotta be smart with it. I don't have a problem if we're bringing back species that went extinct in our own lifetime that we know a lot about. And in doing so, we're not going to be putting the habitat of other animals in jeopardy or destroying the ecosystem that we put it into. We don't want to introduce an extinct invasive species onto an ecosystem where it's going to get destroyed. You see what I'm saying? We don't want the species to get destroyed, and we don't want the ecosystem to get destroyed. That's another side of this that you got to think about. Where's this thing going to live? It went extinct for a reason. Because there was no more habitat for it to live in. It couldn't survive. Where are we going to put it? I'm not just talking about this frog they're trying to bring back. I'm talking about whatever they try to bring back. Where are we going to put it? Are we just going to bring back one or two as an oddity to look at and to experiment on? Or are we going to bring back an actual breeding population that can sustain itself in the wild? What are the repercussions of that if we do? What effect will that species have on whatever ecosystem we put it into? How many more species will go extinct because we put that extinct species into that ecosystem? You see how this starts to balloon out of control? The more you go down this rabbit hole, the more you ask these questions and lead to more questions. And it turns out we're doing way more harm than good. This always happens when human beings get too big for their britches and they try to play God. When we say we have the power to bring back a species and introduce them again to the world, well, yeah, maybe we can. But what will happen if we do? What effect will that have? These are serious questions that somebody has to answer. But what happens is nobody thinks about this stuff. At least not the people that are doing it. They're not thinking, well, is this a good idea? If I do this, am I going to cause all these other species to go extinct? Am I going to hurt people? What's going to happen? They're not thinking that. They're thinking, hey, I can do this. I'll be the first person to do this. Let's do this. That's what they're thinking. Scientists are always trying to push forward science. They're trying to make the next great discovery. They're trying to move the goalpost further. And that's not a bad thing. But it's up to society as a whole, at least the thinking people in society, not all of society, because there's a lot of mouth breathers in society that shouldn't be making any decisions like this. But the people that actually think, those people should be in on this decision, if that makes sense. Somebody should be saying, okay, wait a minute. What are all the possible repercussions here if this happens? But the problem is you don't have anything set up like that to be that voice of conscience on the scientific community. The scientific community just does whatever the hell it wants. And believe me, it will go as far as it can possibly go until someone stops them. Eventually, people are going to have to get outraged, government's going to have to get involved and shut this down. Because it will reach a point of lunacy. It always does. People that are too close to the issue never see the downsides of that issue, whatever it is. From an outside point of view, you can look and say, well, that's a crazy ass idea. Why would you do that? But if you're the person that's coming up with the way to do it, you're not thinking, how's my work going to be used by somebody else? They're going to do something stupid with it. You're thinking, if I can bring this species of frog back, if I can figure out how to do that, I could end world hunger by bringing this species back, which could feed everybody, or I could bring back man sometime. You know, figure out a way to keep us alive longer or bring us back from death. Those are the things that drive the science. It's not the idea of, I'm going to make a monster that's going to destroy the world. I'm going to make something that's going to cause a worldwide plague. They're not thinking that, but those are the possible repercussions of what they're doing. That's what's never really seriously discussed by the people that actually make the decisions to move forward on something like this. Because they look at moral issues and they look at those kind of things as not that important. What's important is the science, getting to the next step. So that's my 2 cents on it. Now, I'm coming at this wearing a lot of different hats. Okay, everybody knows my stance on God. Everybody knows my feelings about the Bible and religion and morality. And also, everybody knows that I was a scientist as well at one point in my life. So I can see both sides of this. All I'm saying is, don't say don't do it because you shouldn't play God. Don't say do it because it can be done. The answer is in between. The answer is somebody saying, hey, wait a minute. It might be smart to do this sometimes, but we really need to be a little selective about what we do and know 100% what's going on before we bring it back. If it's something that we don't know a lot about, not a good idea because there's too many variables. And if you're trying to make an important decision that has the potential to be life-changing or life-ending, you want to reduce the variables as much as possible in that equation. So when you're sitting there thinking in your mind, do I want to do this or do I don't want to do this, whatever that thing is that you're trying to decide on, you do what they call the pros and cons. Everybody's heard that, where you make the list of pros and cons. But also what you should be doing if you're smart and a thinking person is you ought to be making a list of variables as well. Your list of variables is things that you don't know. You don't know how it's going to go. If you make this decision, it could go this way or this way. You're not sure. That's a variable. And then you have a list of unintended consequences. It just keeps going and going. Big decision. That's what I'm saying. And it's not something that we should just be like, hey, let's make Jurassic Park so we can go ride dinosaurs. That's crazy. That is absolutely nuts. Now, I understand that the media likes to portray it as Jurassic Park. It's a form of clickbait. It's a way to get people to read the article and people like me to talk about it. But we should really not just discount that title, because think about it. That's what they did in Jurassic Park, is they brought back extinct animals. And it went very bad. And what I'm saying is the reality of the situation, it could be way worse. Because you could be unleashing different kind of microscopic life that you just have absolutely no clue what it can do or what kind of effect it can have on mankind. So that's my 2 cents. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and see what he has to say about the article and what he thinks about this whole crazy thing.
I think it's kind of neat that the frog, gave birth to other frogs through its mouth. That's really weird. That's a new one. And, it's cool that they're going to try to bring that species back. I know why they're doing it. It is all leading up to bringing dinosaurs back. I know why, it was clickbait like he was talking about. And I believe that's what this is really about, because that's what they've been trying to do for a while. And the point is, I get why they're trying to do it, because they want to bring something back that was dead. And like James said, there's no good from this, and there isn't. Jurassic Park proves a point. The movie proves a point. There's no need for these animals to be back, because somebody's just going to exploit them and use them for money. And you don't need these nightmares. Like T-Rex is nothing. The raptors they learn. They're smart. So look what they did in the movies. You imagine if a military got a hand on these 7-foot giants, they look what they could do. And that's what would happen. And they would be dissected and treated wrong. And then, like I said, oh wow, look, they're so awesome, they're back. But after a while, like the zoos and Bottom and Barely and all those odysseys. Yeah, it was cool at first, but after a while, people get tired of seeing the same thing over and over. Like, look what happens with lions and people. Oh yeah, it's great to see them, but after a while, no one cares anymore. No one. Oh, let's go see something else. That's what happened. That's what happened exactly with like Bigfoot and all these other creatures. Like Nessie, if they ever get found, I really don't wish they would. I'm really glad that they're staying legends, even though I believe them. But I'm just glad it's staying this way, because I believe they're using this all for one thing, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, the woolly mammoth, I do believe they should bring it back, and I understand why they want to do it, and that's fine. And that's about in a couple other things like the sloth and a couple other, critters. But like he said, you don't know what the diseases they have and what you could die. They could bring back. It could destroy us all, and it might not. You never know. They're going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter. I don't matters if I agree with it or not. I think men's destined to destroy themselves. That's my opinion. And I think they're trying to find a way to stay alive forever. In my opinion, there's a lot of reasons why they do a lot of this stuff. Is the end game is to find out how to survive forever, how to live forever, how to never die. They like using lizards and frogs and stuff, because some can grow back limbs and tails. They're trying to find that in DNA now. I read that too. So if you lose your arm, you can grow it back. Or change your skin color and stuff and adapt to different climates. But I know there's more to it. There's money to be made. This is why they want to bring dinosaurs back. There's money to be made. People will want to see them. And in whatever one they can bring back, it will make more and more money. And then if they're dangerous enough, like raptors, they can be controlled. The government or some other government would take it over and use it as a weapon. We all know that that's what's going to end up happening. And they're going to be experimented on. And it's ridiculous. There's no need for it, but they're going to do it. They've been trying to do it. They want to play God or gods, whatever you believe, and it's going to backfire, either biologically or they're going to eat us all, Once they start breeding, they can breed faster than we can. So remember that. And yeah, we'll be able to kill a lot of them, but I don't know. They could overtake us, or we could find a way. What I believe is in the end game, we're trying to find out how to live forever, the fountain of youth and stuff like that, to live forever. And I think we should do a show about how people want to live forever and don't want to die. And that's a show we could do one day down the line. But I believe that's what this is all about: to find the perfect human, to not get sick from disease, to live forever. And I have my opinions on that too. That's another thing that we can talk about down the line. So, on another show. But like James was saying, this is all going to be used in the wrong way. And there's no reason for it. There could be some real monsters, some real nightmares. You know, T-Rex was nothing. There's so many different species that coming to find out were worse, and what they could do. And you know, you guys seen Jurassic Park? What's that? I don't know what all their names is. I'm horrible with names. So that thing, it ate like a giant shark or great white. They were feeding it. Thing's crazy, like 80 feet long. It was eating whales and stuff like that. You know, the megalodon. That might still exist, but just imagine if that thing was still populated in the ocean. They get 60 to 100 feet. They're huge. They will own the ocean. I don't care how big a submarine they want to eat it. They're going to knock it in the ocean, and it's gone. You know, some of these monsters were huge. They're 160 feet long, crazy. Even giant squids, they said that didn't exist, but they did. Imagine that's what they were eating. So just think about how big these things are some of these things would be. Even if they weren't vicious, some of them are 100 feet long. They're still, where are you going to put them? You know how much space they take? You couldn't live with them. They destroy your house. They're not going to stop they see a tree they're going to eat, and there goes your house. So imagine this stuff. This is what people need to realize. Yes, it's awesome. Trust me, there always brings the kid of you. You know, Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies. Series of movies. Some of them weren't the best, but I like a lot of the movies because I just like the whole dinosaur thing. I'm a big dinosaur fan. I love dinosaurs, monsters, and all that kind of stuff. It always just loved it. Like Godzilla, look at that. You know, imagine that could happen. You never know. Not it's going to blow fire, but that could get that big. You know, imagine having something roaming around like that. Look how bad what it does. It destroys everything. There's no good on it. There's just money to be made. And I get it that you know, scientists want to bring things back because they want to see if they can be God, and that's what it comes down to. That's what I believe. And pat themselves on the back. Hey, I brought dinosaurs back, you guys. You know, how do you like that? You enjoying that? You know, look at that giant monster. It's right. Oh, wait a minute, it just ate that people. Well, they'll be all right. We'll make sure it gets caged up this time and doesn't eat somebody else again. Come on. It's a mistake. It will eat every other animal. Think about it. What do you think dinosaurs are going to do? They're going to eat everything. Birds, bats, whatever they can find, they're going to eat. And then there was giant, you guys seen the King Kong movie, the giant insects that were, they're bigger than humans. They would eat us. Imagine if they brought these insects back. They're huge. They were showing like these caterpillars and stuff, and centipedes. They're like 10 feet long. Imagine it. They're poisonous, deadly. Think about this, guys. People need to start realizing, I understand it's a great fantasy to have these things back. But in reality, there's no place for them to be here. Not locked up in a cage either. There's no point for them to be brought back to be locked up. These things were roaming and running the world before we were around. They don't need to be brought back just to sit in cages and so people can make money off of them and we could see them. For our entertainment till we're done and we get bored of them. Just like we get bored of everything. And human beings do that. They get bored of stuff and then they go and do something else. I don't care how much you love something. Over time, it gets annoying and you want to see something else. You know, now we can get a dragon. If we can get dinosaurs back, we can make dragons. Okay? Well, think about it. Would you want a giant 70-foot lizard flying around? It could breathe fire. You know what people would do with that? Think about what would happen with that. Or breathes ice. Or they could make it where their armor's bulletproof or bomb-proof. They would use it as a weapon. You wouldn't even need a plane anymore. You could just send that over. About 200 or 300 of those. What are you going to do about it? Send yours after them? Think about it. It will come down to them being used as a weapon, just like the dinosaurs. They will find a way to use it against people. Imagine it. If you could have a giant, instead of having a tank, you can get a couple these triceratops, armor them. What do you think's going to happen? No good. You're not going to stop them. They're going to go. They're going to just use that to tear down barricades and stuff like that, bomb shelters. And I'm just showing you an example. It probably would never. It's never going to happen, but that's what would probably happen. They're going to be used as weapons, and I know it's going to happen. Or they're going to be used for a carnival act, and I'm sick of it. That's what everybody wants to do. They want to do a Bigfoot. If they found Bigfoot, what do you think's going to happen? They're going to cut it up. They're going to find more, and they're going to put it in a cage. That doesn't need to be in the cage because they're not bothering anybody. We're bothering them. It's their world. We just live here. We're the ones who make sure that we move into their areas. We go explore their domains. We're the ones that do the killing. When people realize that and like humans always do, we overdo things. We don't just do our need. We do where it's just gluttony. That's just how we are. We need more and more and more. One's not enough. 10 million's more. More and more money, more of this, more of that, more everything. That's just how we are as human beings. Not everyone is, but a lot of people are like that. So if they brought this stuff back, there's a reason for they're going to do it. And I believe the end game is they want to find out how to bring back humans if something happened to us. I believe that, but it's also to play God to the point where they can do whatever they want, bring back whatever they want, humans, dinosaurs, anything. And I think that's what the end game is. And that's just my opinion. I know people are going to say, well, what the hell are you talking about, old boy? No, that's just my opinion. I mean, you don't have to agree with it. I don't care one way or another. But, that's just my opinion. Just like James has his, I agree with a lot of what he's saying. But I also believe there's also a money to be made there, and it's going to be made. It doesn't matter what we say. They're going to do it. They've been doing it for a while. So, that's all I can say. If you guys, tell us what you think in the comments on the show. So that's all I got to say, James. There you go, brother.
I agree that they will absolutely be exploited for profit, 100%. But old boy said something that was crucial when he said they would own the ocean. Imagine one of these aquatic dinosaurs being brought back in a breeding population. For those that don't know, a breeding population is when you have enough individuals of that species that they can survive in the wild through breeding. So if you have a breeding population of an aquatic dinosaur that is large, the potential there is it shuts down shipping on the ocean. If it's big enough to destroy your ship, and it's ornery enough to destroy your ship, guess what? You're not sailing your ship anymore. So you shut down shipping on the ocean. A lot of goods and services travel on boats across the ocean. A lot of food travels on boats across the ocean. Imagine scientists bring back some of the winged dinosaurs. Now, when you think of that, you think of the pterodactyl. That's what we were all taught in school. Pterodactyl is a term that is usually used to describe a whole large gamut of winged dinosaurs that look the same. They're just different sizes. There was differences, but that's what people think of when they think of a winged dinosaur. They think pterodactyl. But the one that we consider the pterodactyl wasn't even the biggest. Okay, out of the winged dinosaurs, you had wingspan ranges all the way from 10 inches and 3.5 feet, all the way up to like 23 feet, and one of the largest is 36 feet wingspan. Now imagine, you see what a duck or a goose or any kind of regular bird that we have today does to a plane when it hits it. It'll blow the engine completely out. You remember the story of Sully, who landed the airliner in the Hudson River in New York? Well, the reason he had to land it there is because he flew into a flock of birds, and they flew into the engines and crashed the damn plane. Now, that is normal sized birds. Imagine what happens if you have a sky full of animals with 36-foot wingspans. How does air travel happen anymore? How is it safe? How is it economically feasible to try to ship something through the air? At any time, your plane could be crashed. Now, you might think, well, there's not going to be a flock of these things flying through the air. Well, look at modern birds. They fill the sky sometimes. You've all seen it. You've seen thousands of birds in the sky that all fly in formation and swirl and swoop together. Imagine that. Now, granted, I understand that a lot of these winged dinosaurs aren't directly related to the birds that we have today. They're actually related to other things. I get that. But same principle. Imagine a sky full of these things. How in the hell are you ever going to ship anything to the air again? So you have the potential for all shipping to cease on the oceans because we just can't take boats across the ocean anymore because they get sunk. You can't fly anymore. Now, that's not just going to stop you from going and seeing your grandma in Florida. That's also going to stop food from being shipped around the world. The only thing you got left is trucking. But you start throwing in Brontosaurus and all kinds of gigantic dinosaurs like that in the mix, who knows if you can even do that anymore? Because they got to go somewhere. Where are we going to put them? And once we put them there, how in the hell are we ever going to keep them there? How are you going to make them stay? It's not like you can talk to them and reason with them and say, look, we brought you back, so we're going to give you this little area over here, so just chill out over here. Don't come over here and mess up our stuff. Just stay over here and be cool. Not going to work. Can't communicate. Potentially, we could completely destroy our entire civilized world. Now, there will be humans that are still alive. We will not die out as a species unless some kind of super plague takes us. There'll be pockets of us that still survive. But you won't be able to go to your grocery store and get a banana whenever you want it. Those days will be gone. Because how the hell are you going to get it here? I'm pretty sure you're not growing bananas where you live. So how is the banana going to come from the jungles of South America all the way to your grocery store? Not going to happen. We're going to be forced to eat locally. So the only thing that will be available to you will be vegetables and fruit and animals that are raised locally. Doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Does it sound like a good idea to you? Now, I said earlier that maybe it's smart to do this in some cases not. Let's say there is a species of fish that was a great source of meat that we fished out of life, into extinction. Let's say, for example, even though they still exist, let's say tuna or sardines, one of those two, went extinct. Now, those two fish are very well-known fish, and they're fish that we eat all the time. Let's say we fished them all out of existence. They're gone. Now, we could bring them back if we had the technology, and we could repopulate the oceans with them. We could pass laws against fishing for that species. Anytime you catch that species, you got to let it go for a set number of years until the population rebounds to a point to where it's safe to fish them again. We could do that. We could supply a lot of food for a lot of people. That is an example of a responsible way that this technology could be used. But as Einstein said when he was talking about the atom bomb, there's no way to keep it to just good. That's not a direct quote, by the way, obviously. I'm paraphrasing his sentiments on the atom bomb. He knew he had to make it because Germany was trying to make it. But everybody who was involved in the Manhattan Project knows that that's not a good thing. Once that genie was let out of the bottle, once that particular Pandora's box was opened, it started an arms race. And we have developed weapons that are capable of wiping entire countries off the map, which is insane. That didn't need to happen. There was no reason for us to do that. But you get yourself in a situation where once that technology exists or gets close to existing, somebody's going to do it. So if the bad guys are going to do it, the good guys got to do it too, so they can meet force with force. That's the scary thing about technology, and that's the scary thing about science sometimes, is not everything is good. Now with nuclear, you have nuclear energy, which is a great thing for the world. You can power homes. You can power entire countries on nuclear power if you wanted to. Now you have situations with nuclear power where every once in a while there's a disaster. But that's not the norm. That's the exception to the rule. Nuclear power has gotten a very bum rap from people that have an agenda. It's a lot safer than they make it seem. The problem is when it isn't, it really isn't. So there you have it. So basically, to sum up, I would say this genie may not be entirely out of the bottle yet, but it's got its coat on and it's got one leg out and it's grabbing its sunglasses. It's going to make a break for it, whether we like it or not. The technology already exists. We already know how. That's the problem. We can't unlearn it. So it's a matter of time before this happens. The only thing we can do is try to manage it and make sure that it doesn't lead to some of the nightmare scenarios that we've outlined tonight. Is it possible to do that? Probably not. Because you're always going to have somebody somewhere that doesn't give a damn, that's going to do whatever they want to do anyway. And when that person has the scientific expertise and ability and the funding, bad things are going to happen. That's just the way it is. The time to stop all this nonsense was decades ago, and we didn't do it. So most likely, some of the things we said tonight will probably happen. I don't think it'll get to a point where it destroys our entire civilization. At least I hope not, but who knows, man? The world's kind of crazy anymore. It's hard to tell what's going to happen. So that being said, we're about out of time for the show, so I'm going to throw it back over to old boy so we can do his shout-outs and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody on Parax Radio. Thanks for listening to us every Sunday night. You guys want to listen to any of our old shows or newer shows, go to James Hershey Jr.'s YouTube page and subscribe. Check out some of our new shirts and our new COVID-19 mask at the store, or any other stuff we sell on there, and you can get whatever you want pretty much. Just let us know. We'll make it for you if we can. I want to thank you guys for listening. We love doing this stuff for you guys every week, and we'll keep doing it. Have a great night, Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Monster Hunters, and Demon Lovers. I love you, and blessed be.
For those of you that are listening on the radio, you can find all of the old episodes of Staring Into the Abyss, all of the episodes of Tales from the Abyss, the TV show we do, and a bunch of other stuff on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. So go check it out. 100% free. Subscribe. Enjoy. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. TEESPRING.com/store with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. If you go to our Facebook page, the Staring Into the Abyss Facebook page, I have added a Shop Now button on that page. That will take you directly to the merchandise store. If you don't want to type it all in or you can't remember it, it's an easy way to find it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for all the support that you give us. We greatly appreciate you. And until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.